What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the new photo picker, originally introduced in iOS 14 and improved in iOS 15. Here we are on a Apple developer video that had talked about it. I'm going to try to remember to link this down below, but we'll talk about what it is, why it's important, the fact that image picker controller is going away, so the fact that you should migrate and all that good stuff. So it has a bunch of new privacy improvements, functionality that we've been waiting for quite a while. So we're not here to watch a video, we're here to write some code. So start by smashing the like button down below, subscribe to the channel if you want to stick around and you're into iOS so we can get to 30k subs real quick. That all said, let's get into the video. Alright, let's go ahead and get started by opening up Xcode and creating a new project. Bear in mind, this is Xcode 13 beta. We're going to stick with the app template under iOS. Let's give this project a name. I'll go ahead and call it PhotoPicker. Make sure your language is set to Swift. And for the interface today, we're working with UIKit. So go ahead and make sure this is storyboard. Let's continue and save the project wherever you'd like. I'll toss it onto my desktop. And first things first, we're going to go ahead and close this right panel. I'll go ahead and expand my Xcode window, and we're going to jump into the view controller file. I'll also go ahead and select a simulator from up here. We'll go with the 12 Pro Max and go ahead and give this a Command B, Command R to build and run our application. So once that simulator decides to show up, we'll start getting into the new PH Picker controller. And basically this new photo picker controller replaces the legacy image picker controller, which Apple has shared guidance on is going to go away. So you should all move to this new component if you use image picker controller. So we're going to go ahead and start by importing the Photos framework as well as importing Photos UI. So once we've got both of these imported, what we're going to do in our actual application here is we're going to have a plus button at the top right to go ahead and select one or multiple photos. We'll talk about multi-selection, and then we're going to bring them into our actual app and show them in a collection view. So let's go ahead and knock out the photo picker piece first. So we want a plus button at the top right. So we're going to say navigation item dot right bar button item is going to be a UI bar button item, and we want to try to spell things correctly or it's not going to work. UI bar button item, and the type that we want is going to be an add button, target of self, and a selector of did tap add. And what we can go ahead and do is declare this function right down here. Make sure it's a Objective-C annotated selector. And once we've done this, we can get into the photo picker. So the nice thing about this photo picker, and you'll see it in a moment, you don't actually need to request user permission to use it because of the way Apple has designed it. It's not really a view controller that's actually being presented in your app. It's actually the Photos app being hosted on top of your app. So there's a really interesting WWDC discussion about this that I might link down below. But let's actually create this picker. So to create the picker, you need to create a picker configuration first. So PH picker configuration, or just PH picker configuration. And you can go ahead and create it with a photo library or without. So we're going to create it with the user's shared photo library. If you have multiple libraries for whatever reason, you can go ahead and pass it in right there. And now on this configuration, one new thing that this controller allows you to do, this photo picker, that image picker wasn't nice about allowing you to do, is allow for multi-asset selection. So we're going to go ahead and say selection limit. Let's say we say it's 3, and we can also go ahead and say config dot the actual selection is going to be, let's see if I can find it. Let's see, we have pre-selected asset. The selection actually is not what we want. What I'm looking for is the filter. What's nice is now we can do this, before with the image picker controller as well. It just wasn't as a simple syntax, but now you can pass in a PH picker filter. Now let's go ahead and take a look at that PH picker filter. And you can say that I only want to select images or live photos or videos, or what you can do is I want to select any of multiple. So let's say I want images and I want to be able to select live photos or maybe I only want live photos or videos. So today we'll work only with images since it makes our life easier. So let's go ahead and say images here. And now that we've got this configuration set up, we can go ahead and pass it into the picker controller and present it. So we'll go ahead and say that a view controller is going to be PHPicker view controller. Now this is going to go ahead and be created with our configuration that we created right up above. We'll go ahead and say vc.delegate is self, which is how we're going to get the callback to get the results out. And then finally, we're going to go ahead and say present the view controller with an animation, which will pass true for. Now it's going to yell at me that we don't conform to this delegate. So let's go ahead and do that up here. We want to go ahead and say PHPicker view controller delegate. And it has a single function. Let's see if I can find it. This one right here. It is picker did finish picking results, and results is an array. If you notice, not images, PHPicker results. So let's talk about actually getting these out. So we're going to first and foremost dismiss the picker. We'll say go ahead and dismiss this view controller with an animation. And what we want to go ahead and do is these results actually create what they call item provider. So if you go ahead and say results.forEach, and then we say results in, each of these results have a item provider, and what you need to do is call a load object function on the item provider to actually load the object. And we're going to go ahead and say load an object of type UIImage.self. So we're going to try the image. If you were getting a photo or a video, like the images and the actual thing you're getting back, the asset would differ, which is why Apple asks you to pass in the type that you want to try to load. This is going to be the actual image, or we can actually call this reading is what they call it, and an optional error as well. And here we're going to go ahead and say guard let image is reading as the UI image. And we, of course, want to make sure the error is nil to make sure nothing has gone wrong. And otherwise, we can go ahead and return here. And we have an image at this point, so we'll go ahead and just do that with a simple print. Now, print isn't really helpful, but before we get into wiring this up to our UI, we need to actually, take a look and make sure our photo picker is working. And we're not going to see our add button up here because we don't have a navigation controller quite yet. So I'm going to jump into the main.storyboard file here. We'll go ahead and select the view controller. Up here, go to editor, and we want to go to embed in, if I could find it. There it is. We want to embed this inside of a navigation controller. And just for aesthetic purposes, I'll go ahead and make the navigation bar the large style. So let's see if Xcode is going to decide to open up the right panel. If not, we can skip it. There we go. Sometimes this beta is super flaky, hit or miss. So everybody cross your fingers that it decides to not crash. So we'll come back here, also go ahead and give it a title of new photo picker. And let's go ahead and give it a run. So we should expect to see our title at the top as well as a plus button. And when I go ahead and tap on the plus button at the top right, we should see the new PHPicker controller pop up. So we'll go ahead and tap on this, and there's our picker. So the coolest part is there wasn't any permission request. And it's strictly because Apple has designed this in a way such that your app actually hosts this other app on top of it, and it's not actually getting access to all the photos. It's only getting access to what the user here chooses to give you access to. Now, the other cool thing you'll notice here is because we've set the selection limit to 3, unlike Image Picker Controller, you can start checking different photos, very similar to the Photos app. And then once you've hit the limit, it'll gray everything out, and you can go ahead and hit the done button to go ahead and dismiss and come back here. And what you'll see here is we are printing out our images, at least we should be. So let's see, we have one error and we have 2 images. So one of them is definitely giving us an error, and one of them, or 2 of them, are giving us images. And that's actually expected in the actual photo picker. So let's go ahead and create a very, very simple image, collection view for images, just to populate our UI with the images that we have gotten. So I'm going to go ahead and create this super, super quick. So if you're not up to par on collection views, go ahead and watch my other videos on them, I've got a couple videos on collection views. So we'll go ahead and just, I'm going to call this C for sake of brevity. We'll go ahead and create a collection view with a frame of 0, and then we're going to create a layout right up above this. I'll go ahead and say layout is UI collection view flow layout. Go ahead and do that. And let's see, we want to go ahead and return the collection view. In your actual apps, please don't call things a single letter variable. It's really not a good thing to do. I'm just doing it because I'm being lazy. We're going to go ahead and register a cell here. So we'll go ahead and say my cell.self. We haven't created this yet. I will also go ahead and give it an ID of cell. And let's go ahead and create this here very, very quickly. I'm literally just doing this so you guys can actually see how we can use these images after they've been brought in. We'll go ahead and create a image view on here. We'll say UI image view. And let's see, we want to override the initializer. So that's this one right here. We'll say super inits, pass in the frame. We also want the required initializer, if I can find it. Let's see. So we've got the frame. Here's a required one. And we want to lay out this image. So layout subviews, we'll call super layout subviews, and we'll give our image view a frame of content view dot bounds. So it takes up the entirety of the cell. So content view is what I'm looking for. Looks like we actually don't have a content view. Interesting. So we'll go ahead and say bounds, and don't forget to simply add the image view as a subview here. So we're going to go ahead and say, so we actually don't want to override this one here. This should be a UI collection view cell, not the collection view itself. We'll go ahead and get rid of this stuff. All right, looking good. And then we'll go ahead and say add sub view for the image view. And let's go ahead and hit Command B very quickly to make sure it's all building, still building, beautiful. We'll go ahead and add the collection view. We'll say add the collection view as a subview. What else do we need to do? We need to go ahead and assign this guy's data source. So we'll go ahead and do that as well. And we want to make sure that this fits the entirety of the current screen. So we'll say this frame is view.bounds, just like that. And let's go ahead and bring in that data source and try to load in all of our images. So I'm not going to really beautify it too much. It's going to be not the nicest looking collection view, but hopefully you guys will get the point. So go ahead and say number of items, or number of, let's see what the function is called. So number of items, yep, that's what I'm looking for. And here we're going to go ahead and return basically the number of images that we get. So let's go ahead and create an array of images, which is going to be initially an empty array of UI image. This is going to be return images.count. And then finally, we want the self row, or self or item rather, since it's not a table view. And in here, we can go ahead and actually dequeue our cells. We'll go ahead and say collection view, dequeue a reusable cell with a given identifier. That ID is cell that we registered up above for the given type. We're going to try to cast it as my cell. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and return a fatal error, which is not good. And let's see, we'll go ahead and return the cell. And here I'm going to say cell.imageView.image is simply going to be our nth image in the given array. So this will be indexPath.row. So cool. So now that we have this, let me go ahead and give it a run, make sure nothing is crashing, and then we'll need to make one final adjustment to just see all of our results. So this is expected. We should not be seeing any images, but let me just set a background color to make sure we are actually seeing our collection view in place, even though it will be empty. So let's see, this is yelling at me because this should be background color, not background view. Let's try that one more time. All right, cool. So there is our collection view. And let's go ahead and now in this results iterator thing, instead of just printing out the image, what we're going to go ahead and do is we are going to convert these results into images. So we're going to say self.images is going to be results.compactMap, because we do want to go ahead and get rid of the actual nil objects that we get back from the item provider. we're going to say $0.item_provider load object of type UI_image.self, and then in the callback we're going to go ahead and say results, and this is going to be a error, and we're going to go ahead and say guard let image is going to be the result as a UI image where the error is also nil. Otherwise we'll go ahead and return nil here, and if we are able to successfully get that image, we'll return the image. So let's make sure this error goes away and it stops yelling at me. Let's see what it's yelling at us about. Cannot convert value of type progress to closure type of UI image. Makes sense. So this itself is a synchronous block. So let's actually be smarter about this. Instead of doing this, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'll undo all the way to this. And for the sake of time, I'm just going to go ahead and say self.images, go ahead and append the given image, just like that. And you want to make sure you capture weak self here as to not cause a memory leak. So here we'll say weak self optional there. And once we're done with all of this, I'm not using a dispatch group or anything. We'll go ahead and say collection view.reload data, and hopefully we'll start to see our images. So let's go ahead and give that a run. We'll go ahead and pick some images. Go ahead and hit done. And we're not seeing our images. That's a bummer. What has gone wrong? Let's go ahead and debug this. So let's see what's going on. So we don't see our images, and the reason, let's go ahead and print out images.count. It's probably because we're trying to reload before the results are done. So let's go ahead and do this, this, and this. We'll go ahead and hit done. And we see here that it's trying to reload before the results are loaded, which of course is not going to work. So we're going to use a dispatch group because we want to make sure we handle the concurrency appropriately. We'll say dispatch group. And for every single time that we have a result, we're going to say group.enter. And in every single one of these, we'll say group.leave. And finally, once the group is entirely done processing each of the result item providers, we'll say group.notify on the main thread. And we're going to go ahead and say execute this callback, which is a closure, in which we'll go ahead and simply reload the data and once again print out the count. So let's go ahead and see if this is going to work. All right, we'll hit the plus. We'll go ahead and select 3 images. Go ahead and hit add. And all right, I see the images there. 2 of them are showing up because the third one threw this error. So that's a pretty good lesson actually that I didn't intend to teach here, but ordering your operations of loading these images out of the PHPicker controller results is really important because these images can be quite large. So the actual load operation here is asynchronous, it's a closure. So just be mindful of that. The images are super duper small because we haven't actually set up the item size. You can do that in the collection view here. Maybe I'll just do that really quickly for the sake of trying to make an effort. So we'll go ahead and say item size is a CG size with a width and height. Xcode 13 autocomplete is super duper bad sometimes, and sometimes it's like really good. So I think it's like kind of debatable if Apple made an improvement, but then again, it's a beta and I'm being extremely picky, so hopefully it gets better. But let's go ahead and do that one last time and we shall wrap up. The cool thing is this looks of course really nice in light mode and dark mode as it should. So let's go ahead and pick these images here. We'll go ahead and hit add. Whoops. Looks like I only picked one there. Let's try that one more time. We'll go ahead and do that. And actually, since we're just appending, it'll continuously add to it. And we have a big space in the middle there because I didn't account for proper sizing. But yeah, there you have it. That is the new PHPicker controller in a nutshell. Again, this was new as of iOS 14, and iOS 15 brought in some changes. The coolest change, I think, that I didn't even talk about is you have the ability to search for images. So it doesn't show up in the simulator, presumably because we don't have that many images. But what you can do is on your device, the user, if they have a lot of images, you'll see a search bar where they can search for like people or landscape, and the picker uses intelligence to find those photos for them, which I think is the coolest thing ever. But that's all I've got for you guys today. I'll stop harping about this photo picker. Definitely migrate to it if you're still using image picker controller. I know I still need to, so that's all I've got for you guys. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like down below. Helps out a lot. Helps YouTube push the video out because of the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel if you're into iOS and want to stick around. We're almost at 30K subscribers. Super duper excited to get there. Want to do like a Q&A once we're there, hopefully sometime soon. And comment if you have any questions about just the Photos framework, Photos UI, the picker. I've got a lot of new videos coming about PhotoKit and more WWDC stuff, so stay tuned for that, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.